Coming up is a recap of the NFL season so far.
Plus, a basketball home opener you won't want to miss.
I'm Aliyah Polk.
And I'm Adriana.
Get ready for an action-packed show.
Rambler Sports Locker begins now. This week officially marked the start of the college basketball season, and I'm so excited to see what's in store for our Loyola basketball teams.
Same here. Speaking of our Rambler athletes, here's Natalie King with more on how all of our Loyola sports did this week.
Welcome back to another edition of the Rambler Rundown. It's been a very successful and jam-packed week in Loyola sports. Loyola men's and women's basketball had their first games on Monday, with the men's team defeating Chicago State 79-72, and the women's team defeating Kentucky State 91-56. Stay tuned for more about their season openers later. The women's volleyball team was on the road in Pittsburgh last weekend to take on Duquesne. The Ramblers defeated the Dukes in straight sets, marking their fourth and fifth sweeps in a row. Today and tomorrow, Loyola will host Fordham in Gentile for their final home matches of the season. On Saturday, the cross-country teams competed in the Atlantic 10 Championships in Virginia. The women's team placed first with their sixth straight conference title and third in the A10, and the men's team placed second. The men's soccer team was at home for their senior day on Saturday, where they beat St. Joseph's 4-1. The team will not be continuing to the postseason, but they were able to end their regular season with a big win. The women's soccer team played in the quarterfinals of the Atlantic 10 tournament on Saturday, but had a tough loss to UMass 1-0. The team is not done quite yet, as they will play a series of exhibition matches starting in February. That's all for this week's rundown. For Rambler Sports Locker, I'm Natalie King.
Thanks, Natalie. Our Ramblers had a great week, especially our women's cross-country team with their conference championship. While many college sports seasons are coming to a close, basketball season is just getting started. Here's Rachel Lieberman with more on the first week of the season.
College basketball season kicked off this week, and the number 1 seeded Kansas Jayhawks beat Howard University 87-57 on Monday. Not surprisingly, all top 10 teams were victorious. Second-seeded Alabama crushed UNC Asheville 110-54. Fourth-seeded Houston Cougars won 97-40 against Jackson State, and the fifth-seeded Iowa State Cyclones won 83-44 against Mississippi Valley State. In a seeded matchup, the sixth-seeded Gonzaga Bulldogs destroyed the eighth-ranked Baylor Bears 101-63. Richmond, who the Ramblers tied with for the last A10 crown in the regular season last year, took on Mount Olive Wednesday night, winning 101-68. It's early on, but these wins put teams in a good mindset. There were some shocking upsets, with number 13 Texas A&M falling to UCF 64-61, and the 19th-ranked Texas Longhorns fell to Ohio State 80-72. Women's basketball also began on Monday with the dominant South Carolina Gamecocks defeating Michigan 68-62 in a tight matchup. Third-seeded USC only beat the 20th-ranked Ole Miss Rebels by 2 with a score of 68-66. Fifth-seeded UCLA Bruins pulled ahead of the 17th-seeded Louisville Cardinals 66-59, and the 6th-seeded Notre Dame Fighting Irish beat Mercyhurst 105-61. The popular LSU Tigers, led by Kim Mulkey, came in as a 7th seed and defeated Eastern Kentucky 95-44. We're in for an exciting season. We'll see how both Loyola teams do this season, with the men hoping to repeat a successful non-conference and A10 season. For more, check out my package on the women's basketball game from Monday night.
I'm here at Gentile Arena, where the women's basketball team just defeated Kentucky State. Here's how it played out.
The Loyola women's basketball team overpowered Kentucky State Monday night to open up their season, winning 91-56. 4 Ramblers led the team, scoring double figures, including Nay Berna's game high of 17 points. Berna set the tone for the game with the 3 on their first possession of the game. Loyola kept the momentum going, ending the quarter up 18-9. The Ramblers' defense was unstoppable. They limited Kentucky State to only 4 of 13 from the field and 0 of 4 from the three-point line. The Ramblers took control by shooting 53%. The Ramblers went on a 12-4 run after Berna's fast break layup gave the Ramblers the largest lead of the half at 17 points. The Ramblers were up 37-20 at half. Loyola remained dominant in the second half, knocking down 4 threes out of 10 attempts. In the fourth, Loyola's Emma Theodorson hit a three, putting the Ramblers up 19 before a suffocating 36-point lead, with the Ramblers putting up 80 against KSU's 44 points. Loyola's bench finished the game cruising to a 91-56 victory. Spirits were high, and Coach Guth shared her support and gratitude for the Pack and all fans post-game. It was a busy day in Gentile as the fans had double duty with the men's team playing right after. Gentile was quite electric.
The women's basketball team will be back here in action in Gentile Arena on Saturday at 7 p.m. taking on West Georgia. The men's team also played today with a huge doubleheader. Here's Natalie King with more. For Rambler Sports Locker, I'm Rachel Lieberman.
I'm here in Gentile Arena where the Loyola men's basketball team just defeated Chicago State in their first regular season game. Here are your highlights. The Ramblers beat the Cougar 79-72, led by 20 points from Jaden Dawson. Loyola started the game on a 6-0 run with layups from Justin Moore, Des Watson, and Miles Rubin. After back-to-back threes, Chicago State took the lead 9-8 around 5 minutes into the game. Loyola and Chicago State both fought hard for the rest of the first half, and a buzzer beater from Dawson put the Ramblers up 37-35 going into halftime. The Ramblers were on a roll in the second half, starting with the 6-0 run. A jumper from Jalen Quinn gave the Ramblers a 12-point lead, their largest during the game. Chicago State fought back and came within 7 points of Loyola with a minute and a half left, but the Ramblers were able to hold on to their lead through the end. Coming off of this win, head coach Drew Valentine is excited to see how the team will develop and work together throughout the season.
We're still early in the season. I told them afterwards in the locker room, we plan on playing deep into March and into April. And so we got a long way to get to know each other more.
The Pack also showed up with support for the Ramblers, filling the stands with maroon and gold to see Loyola bring home their first regular season win. On Sunday, the Ramblers will take on Eureka at home at 1 p.m. For Rambler Sports Locker, I'm Natalie King.
We've officially hit the midseason of the NFL, so let's take a look back at the beginning of the season with the booms and busts of the first round of the 2024 draft class. The player who I think deserves the offensive boom is wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr., who was drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars at pick 23. My main reason for this is that he was outshadowed by Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Romo Dunze, and Brock Bowers, yet he's put up better stats. These stats include 53 targets, 35 catches, 595 yards, and 5 receiving touchdowns. Now on defensive end, I'd have to give the boom to the 19th pick linebacker Jared Verse. Although Laiatu Latu, Byron Murphy II, and Dallas Turner were drafted before Verse, he's having a better season. His stats also reflect this, as he has 20 solo tackles, 13 assisted tackles, 3.5 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. As for the offensive bust, this belongs to Xavier Worthy, who was the 28th pick by the Chiefs. Worthy only has 39 targets, 19 receptions, 235 yards, and 3 touchdowns, which is low compared to the other rookies. Multiple defensive players were drafted in the first round, but the bust was the first one taken, 15th overall pick, Laiatu Latu. With only 9 solo tackles, 5 assisted tackles, 2 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles, his stat sheet's incredibly underwhelming compared to where he was drafted and the high praise he received before the draft. I will say overall, all 4 of these players have potential, and just because Latu and Worthy have yet to show why they were first rounders does not mean they won't prove it in the future. I will say that Thomas and Verse are showing the league why they both should have been drafted higher, but all 4 have a lot more to prove as they show and fight through one of the more prosperous and strong draft classes in the modern era. Now I'll be joined by Rachel Lieberman on the Ramble to discuss our NFL award predictions.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Ramble. I'm your host, Oliver Allen, and today I'm joined by Rachel Lieberman and Joe Mangold. The calendar has turned to November, which means the weather has finally turned cold, the sun sets at 4 p.m., and the NFL season is at its halfway point. There have been a number of headlines from this season, from the undefeated Chiefs, surprise division leaders such as the Commanders and Steelers, all the way to, Bears fans look away, 2 improbable Hail Marys. So, with this in mind, Rachel and Joe will give their picks for most valuable player, offensive, defensive, and comeback player of the year. Right. Whoever gives the better explanation will win the point with a possible tiebreaker at the end. We'll start with MVP. Rachel.
Honestly, it speaks for itself. I'm going to go with Lamar Jackson. Not only is he on my fantasy team and he gives me more than 20 points a game, he's on the path to 35 touchdowns. He has 20 right now and only has 2 interceptions right now, and he's on the path to maybe 5, if any. Pretty low. So, speaks for itself, but he is my MVP.
Good answer. How do you respond?
All right. Well, it's a fair point, but I do got to say, let's look at one quarterback that not many people are talking about, Josh Allen. After losing Diggs, people thought he couldn't play anymore. That, no Diggs means Josh Allen's a horrible quarterback. Well, he's at 2,000 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, and only 2 interceptions as well. Also with the 4th best QBR in the league.
Good arguments presented by both sides, but as a Ravens fan, I don't think that I can not give the point to Lamar Jackson. Best quarterback rating in the league. I think that's who you have to go with. All right, next pick. We're going to start with Joe here. Who's your offensive player of the year?
Well, this is going to make it very happy. The 30-year-old king, Derrick Henry. Now, the reason why, he's got 1,052 rushing yards, 11 rushing touchdowns, and is on pace for 2,120 yards. That would be the record breaker for his season.
Rachel.
How am I going to counter that? But I would go with Christian McCaffrey, but obviously he's hurt. He's sitting on my IR right now. But I will go with Justin Jefferson. The Vikings are really off to a hot start. They were undefeated. They lost 2. They're fine. They're back on track. He is just Justin Jefferson. He also, I guess, Derrick Henry has the stats. Justin Jefferson leads the league in receiving yards with 783. So, go Vikings. A little bit biased, but I do think he is the offensive player of the year.
Tough to choose between the league's leading receiver and the league's leading rusher, but I think with the historic numbers that Derrick Henry's putting up, I'm going to have to give the point to Joe. All right, so tied at 1 halfway through. Our next question is, who is your defensive player of the year? Rachel.
I would go with TJ Watt. Watt brothers, but TJ is leading the Steelers. The Steelers are the 2nd best defense in the league. So, speaks for itself. He leads that pack, so TJ Watt.
Captain. Joe?
Fair enough. I am going to say, though, I'd like to look at another player from the AFC North. Trey Hendrickson has a total of 21 solo tackles and 11 sacks, leads the NFL in sacks, and a week ago had his career high game of 4 sacks in 1 game. Just an incredible defensive player, leading the Bengals, who are currently on their comeback.
Well, it's a tough argument, but I think I'm going to choose Joe on this one. Tough to go against the guy leading the league in sacks. All right, Rachel, you're going to need this one to stay in. Start with Joe. Who's your comeback player of the year?
Comeback player of the year. All right. Well, he tore his wrist ligament in Week 11 in 2023. The quarterback, Joe Burrow, who now has 2,244 passing yards and has the 2nd-rated QBR in the league. This guy is leading a dominant force of offense. Also, Jamar Chase is 2nd in receiving yards. He is leading Jamar to that kind of standpoint. So I've got to give it to Joe Burrow.
No.
All right, Rachel, stay alive. How do you respond?
I do not think the Bengals are as strong as Joe is making them out to be. I think maybe it would have been Sam Darnold if he was eligible, but he's not. Go Vikings. I would go with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is tied. Kirk Cousins is tied for the most touchdowns. I really just don't think Joe Burrow is as steady as you think he is. I think the Bengals have been pretty disappointing so far. I know a lot of people like Joe Burrow, but I do not, and I do not think they're on the right path, so I would counter that.
All right, well, good arguments presented by both sides, but I'm going to go with Rachel for the tie here.
Thank you.
It's just tough to give the point to a quarterback who's leading his team to a losing record. But now, for the tiebreaker, whoever wins this is going to be crowned our winner. We'll start with Rachel. Who's your pick for the winner of the Super Bowl this year?
I'm going to go with the Lions. The Lions are really good. The Lions may be a popular choice, but they're notably known for not being too well as of lately, but they are really off to a really good start. It's halfway through. The Lions are really good. I'm going to go with the Lions.
All right, Joe.
All right.
What do you have to say?
Thank you.
Now, as a football fan, it pains me to say that this is the team I believe in, but I can't say Chiefs. They are a team. They are incredible this season, going 8-0, dominating against teams they play against. And then let's look at it. Monday Night Football went head-to-head with Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers, went to overtime, and guess who led the game-winning drive? Patrick Mahomes. This team is good offensively in terms of passing yards, and they're a phenomenal defense led by Chris Jones. There's no reason I don't think the Chiefs could go 3-peat and win it.
Well, obviously, I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs won at the issue, but I'm going to go with Rachel.
Thank you.
Part of it's denial, but also I'm just not exactly sold on this Chiefs undefeated season so far. Good job, just a lot of close wins. Well fought overall, Joe. Good game.
Thank you.
Rachel,
Thank you.
our champion.
Thank you.
Good job all around. We have a new reigning champion. Takes down Joe, who won last week. Good arguments presented on both sides, and maybe at the end of the season we'll come back and see how these season predictions age here. Well, that wraps up this episode of The Ramble. Rachel, Joe, thank you guys for coming on the show today, and we'll see you all for next week's episode. Let's send this one back to the anchors.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. I can't wait to see how the rest of the NFL season plays out.
That wraps up this episode of Rambler Sports Locker.
To stay up to date on all things Rambler Sports, be sure to follow us on X, TikTok, and Instagram at Loyola RSL, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
From all of us here at Rambler Sports Locker, I'm Aliyah Polk.
And I'm Adriana Demos.
We'll see you next week, and don't forget to turn off the lights.